be me. Grandpa owns over 3.8 billion acre dense forest that no human has ever set foot in since the Cambrian explosion. Decide to go camping. Ahem. Innawoods. Sort of into/K stuff, nothing special. Bring some light stuff, didn't go too crazy on it. Brought my dad's M119 howitzer, with bayonet just in case. Go out in my 3-story tent. Pretty normal until nightfall, where it gets really crazy. There was no sunset, it went immediately from high noon to the dead of night in a literal second, like real life had just become some kind of shitty and obviously fake horror story with over 3,000 cliches. Suddenly I smell something like rusty blood and old metal, or salty coins and milk, it's hard to describe and/or remember. I see a humanoid figure in the tree line, about 6 inches away from my face. Holy shit, it's a walk skinner. I can barely hear it, and it shouts from the tree line, gimme $20. Fire my howitzer at it. It misses, explodes, pisses off the walk skinner. Start to run away, can barely make it the distance from my campsite back to civilization. My house was like 10 feet away, but my feet were really sore. Start to write this story. Do the captcha. Post it.
Here's a story that happened last year. Be me, fiancé, brother, and his wife. Staying at our family's cabin in the Bighorn Mountains just outside of Nosleep, Wyoming. Coolest thing about this cabin is that it's in the middle of BFE and the nearest neighbor is like 10 miles away. Back in the 90s there used to be gypsy caravans that would travel through the mountains herding their sheep and cattle, but they haven't lived here for almost 10 years. They used to have big bonfires and people used to come from all around the valley to drink gypsy hooch, listen to them sing and play music, and dance. Awesome time. The caravan trails that they would take through the forest leading from one side of the mountain to the other are still there. Me and my bro have wandered through the woods in these mountains for decades, and we know them pretty well, but we've never gone on any of the caravan trails because while we were growing up we were told that the trails were haunted. Great uncle who has lived there his whole life told us that when the gypsies moved over from Romania in the 30s they brought something bad with them, some kinda curse or evil spirit. He was half Cherokee and always told us the spookiest stories, so we just believed him, and as we grew older we just decided it was probably best to not go on them since we weren't familiar with them. Anyways, now we're in our late 20s and decided that we were going to stay at the cabin with our women folk with us, and it might be fun to go backpacking in some familiar woods for some cool bonding time. Both my brother and I were carrying sidearms, Star Bonifacio H of Aria 9mm and a Glock G19 for all you/K guys out there. And we thought that besides carrying for safety, it might be fun to plink around a little bit while we're out there. We leave the cabin pretty early, it was mid-July and even though it's in higher altitude and cooler, it can still get hot as hell during the day, and if any of you have ever been mountain climbing you know how crappy it can be climbing around in salt scrub and rocks when you're hot. Especially when you're carrying backpacks. We catch the first crest of the mountain, pick related, but not from this trip, and set some paper targets up that we've brought with us. We make sure our backstop is appropriate, and me, my brother, and our girls take turns shooting the targets, when all of a sudden we hear a yelp. Nobody had seen anything behind our targets, and there was no ricochet. We go to where the noise was and there's a trail of blood leading away from behind our target, with tracks that looked like what we had assumed were coyote tracks. The girls were feeling bad for the little guy, my bro and I thought good riddance, and they wanted us to find it and put it out of its misery. Sadfaces.jpg. So we go in the direction of the blood trail, and my brother notices that the tracks were different. They looked like coyote tracks, but larger, and slightly misshapen. We thought that perhaps maybe the tracks were messed up because it had been shot, so we don't think anything of it. We followed those freaking tracks or blood trail for at least 5 miles and never found a damn coyote. Bro and I are getting pissed because we're off the trail we originally wanted to go on and would have to backtrack, plus we really wanted to find this coyote and skin it for the pelt. The girls are upset because they're really concerned that the coyote is really hurt and they don't want it to suffer. What bothered us the most was that we'd been tracking this thing for a long time and it had lost a lot of blood and we still hadn't found it. All of a sudden the tracks and blood trail stopped. In the middle of nowhere. But right where it stopped was the damn gypsy caravan trail. Bro and I were kinda spooked, but we're just trying to ignore it because there's no way that childhood stories about a gypsy curse or whatever is going to scare us. Girls are more worried about why the blood seemed to stop and there was no critter. Honestly, we had stopped giving damns about the coyote long time ago, so we didn't really care. We were more interested in the gypsy trail now. So, if we went 12 to 13 miles one way, it would lead back down to the main road, which would eventually lead us back to the cabin, but if we went the other way it was only about 7 miles and we'd eventually end up at Meadowlark Lake. A pretty big reservoir that a lot of the smaller communities in the area got their water from. We decided that it was a shorter hike, and since we were adults now and didn't believe in that kinda stuff anymore, and we were carrying sidearms, that we would be just fine. So, we decided to go right onto the trail. We never told the girls about the so-called gypsy curse. It was around 3:30 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so we still had some daylight left, but it would be getting dark before too long, so while we could still wander on the trail an hour or two, we should be looking for an appropriate place to set up camp and start cooking a little bit of dinner. The first hour or so was just absolutely amazing. As we had never been down this path before, everything was new, and we were all really enjoying just soaking in the scenery. The further we went down the trail, however, the quiet the woods seemed to get. Not many squirrels or birds chirping, which during the summer in Wyoming the critters kinda get pretty loud, and even the breeze kinda died down. Really made you feel kinda boxed in. Bro's fiance calls out, "What's that up ahead?" It's a camp. But not just any camp. It's a goddamn gypsy camp. An abandoned ass gypsy camp. With old caravan trailers from like the 60s. There's a small ring of these trailers, all rusted out and dirty, with a huge fire pit in the middle. So, at this point we're a little wigged out, mostly because this is an abandoned gypsy camp, and lingering in the back of my mind is my uncle's goddamn stories about the damn gypsies, but it doesn't seem like there's been anyone here for 10 to 15 years, and the sun is starting to get pretty low. So we decide to set up camp here for the night. Because why the hell wouldn't you set up camp in a goddamned abandoned gypsy camp, am I right? The girls start setting up the little sleeping bag / mini tents we had in our backpacks. We were not staying in those rusted out caravans, while my bro and me start collecting firewood for supper and the rest of the night. While we're collecting firewood we start talking to each other about how this whole thing is kinda trippy and cool and exciting all at the same time, and we notice that the woods have become like, dead quiet. We decide it's best to get back to the girls since we've got both of the guns, and when we get back the girls look a little razzled. They ask us if we heard the animal making weird noises while we were out collecting wood, and we tell them we didn't hear shit, like literally didn't hear anything. They point out the direction of where the noises were coming from, and my brother goes walking over there to check it out while I start the fire and start prepping stuff for dinner. Apparently the girls have completely forgotten about the noises they heard and decide to play some music and unwind a bit because, why the fuck not, we're on vacation and supposed to be having fun. Bro comes back white as a ghost and tells me that the blood trail we lost is right through a copse of trees. We decide not to tell the girls and try to keep the evening lighthearted, but my brother and I stay on pretty high alert. Tell some pretty good stories by the campfire, mainly ones my great uncle used to tell us when we were younger. Given the nature of these stories, we're all on edge. 2 split before me. Decide it's getting late, we want to get to bed so we can wake up early and GTFO and head towards the reservoir and do a little swimming, maybe a little fishing. Everyone gets into their tents, and lays down for bed. I can't sleep for shit though. There's no bugs chirping, no frogs, no night birds, nothing. While we were chatting it up by the fire nobody noticed, but it was dead fucking quiet. I'm laying in my tent straining to hear the faintest noise, to no avail. The only noises I heard were the girls sleeping, and Browski snoring. An hour or so of laying down trying to sleep, and the most ungodly scream I've ever heard comes from the woods maybe 50 to 60 away. It wasn't a bobcat, and it wasn't a coyote or brown wolf. I grab my sidearm and dart out of my tent, and within seconds my brother is doing the exact same. The girls are freaking out asking us what it is, and we're trying to get them to shut the fuck up so we can listen. Sorry it's taking me so long to type this out, I do have any of this story pre-written so I'm having to type it out as I go, and I'm on my phone too. Thanks for being patient with me, X-Fills. On the complete opposite side of where the noise originally came, the noise comes again. Just like a massive fucking snarling scream. Just beyond the tree line there's something just fucking massive. I mean, this thing has got to be 8 feet tall and built like a goddamn linebacker. It starts moving toward us and my brother and I both grab our sidearms and start unloading our magazines at this thing, and it takes off in the other direction. The girls are bawling their fucking eyes out, and my brother and I are just staring at each other like, what the fuck do we do? Do we go after it? We decide the best thing to do is try to take shifts sleeping and watching the rest of the night, but I'm pretty sure nobody got any sleep. All night long, we would hear that scream, but it was moving further and further away from us each time it screamed. The next day we broke camp as soon as daylight showed its face. Luckily, the noises of the forest had started back up. Nobody really wanted to eat breakfast, nobody really wanted to talk. I think we were all just trying to figure out what the fuck had just happened to us. When we got to the reservoir, we went to a diner and got some lunch and called up a cousin to pick us up and bring us back to the cabin, which we promptly left after gathering our things and went back home. I've been back to the cabin since and never had any other encounters of the sort. I've just never gone back to the Gypsy Trail, and I don't plan on it anytime soon. I'm not sure what the fuck it was, but I don't want to meet it again. Be me. B15. 2009. Loved Call of Duty 4 so much. Loved All Gillied Up so much. Favorite level. I would often reenact levels in my yard with imaginary guns and stuff. I was also abnormally tall for 15, this is important. Like 6'2". Heard senior prom was coming up, and since I was a sophomore I couldn't go. Girl across the street was having people over for pictures. Now, at proms what happens is that when you go to take photos, people park their cars bumper to bumper. Reminded me of All Gillied Up when Macmillan and Price crawl under the cars. This give me an idea.jpg. From what I learned from Stephanie, the girl across the street, they were gonna go drinking and shit in the nature reserve after prom, maybe have some sex figure I might spy on them and pretend one is Zakiv and shoot him. Borrow my friend's ghillie suit. Wait until prom. When everyone's taking photos I put on the ghillie suit. It was a little dark by this time, 7 o'clock, and I had cover. ACH, it's a bloody convention out there. When they leave, crawl out and stay low. I say as I see the crowd, I wait for one of the dads to move. Hold. He moves. Okay, go. And so I ran. Exactly as Macmillan does, while even making the sounds of the music from that level. Start crawling under the cars. Holy autism.mosaic. It's a bit of a tighter squeeze than I thought. Pretty tough, but I'm skinny so it works. When I get to the end of the cars, people are starting to leave. I say fuck it and run out from under the cars over to a tree in my neighbor's lawn. I hear someone say, what the fuck was that? I run to the beginning of the woods and look back. People are looking in my direction, mostly kids, they look sort of shaken. They keep wondering what it was that ran past them. I run back to my house when I see one of the dads and one of the seniors, named Jake, start to walk across the street. I say to myself, what the bloody hell was that? You trying to get us killed? Night comes, I pass the time playing MW2. No Macmillan, I am sad. In the woods I see lights. It's the seniors. No, it's the ultranationalists. Kill Zakiv. Throw on my ghillie suit. Run into the forest. Stalk the seniors, about 10 of them, through the trails. I'm snapping a lot of twigs and shit following them. What the fuck is that? One of them says. What? It's me. I run to a safer location. Hello? Stephanie calls out. If they see me everyone will think I'm autistic. They keep walking and I realize I got too close to them. I say in a horrible Scottish accent, are you daft? Stay out of the radioactive areas. What the fuck is that? One of them says. What was that? They're seriously scared. They book it to the campsite, and I tiptoe behind them. When they get there they set up camp. I live in the south so one of the guys brings a gun. His date is complaining, I brought it in case that thing from Stephanie's house come back. What if that was it earlier on our way here? OMG, stop, the females whimper in unison, like a choir of alley cats. The guy, Dave, looks into the woods with his guns while his date starts drinking and inviting him to join her. He's got his eyes fixed on the woods. I pretend he's an ultranationalist who spotted me. I run for cover. I heard something. He shouts. Everyone's getting scared. Girls want to go home. The men decide to be noble and go find the fucker stalking them. I bolt. An hour later, I'm still in the nature preserve, looking for a way out. All of a sudden I run into the guys. I pretend it's that part of all gillied up when Price and Macmillan crawl through the grass past the ultranationalist patrol. I go prone and try to slip past them. Instead, I lay down in deer shit and get it smeared on my friend's ghillie suit. But I continue. Macmillan would have wanted it. They pass me, talking about the creature they saw. Lolwoot. What did you see, Jake? It was huge. Like 6 feet, hairy as fuck, and it was like, walking like it had a limp. I do not walk like that. I do not walk like that. I should probably point out my Macmillan impression sounds like I have a bunch of marbles in my mouth while I get deep-throated by Mandingo and Danny D at the same time. I do my accent and say with all of my autism, pooch doesn't look too friendly. They freak the fuck out and run. I heard it. That's it. I keep running and see lights. Maybe I'm home. Nope, campsite. A girl shines a light into the woods, it hits me. Macmillan would be disappointed. Hello? Say nothing, just stare. Macmillan would have shot her. What do you want, creep? A girl waves to get my attention. Pull down my mask to see if she would recognize me from school so she wouldn't be scared. I smile, but due to autism I smile really wide and with eyes wide like a deer getting ass-rummed. I wave, but it's cold as fuck so I'm shaking a ton and it looks like I'm having a seizure. They scream. It's mimicking us. The thing is here. Stephanie shouts. I run, again. I kept running that night but ran into the group again. Turns out they had split up to search for the creature but 2 of them, Susie and Noah, got lost. They're calling out for Susie. I like Susie, and this fits, so I shout in my Scottish accent. Oi, Susie. A guy shoots at me with his AR. Macmillan would have topped him. He is shooting wildly. Kill that fucking monster. One shouts. I run out of there while screaming loudly, Susie. Susie. Hoping that they'll know I'm helping. I slip and fall into a small pit. Did you smell that thing? One says. I'm still splattered in deer shit. They follow my trail, and Dave reaches the edge of pit. Found it. He cries. Then he slips and falls in. Hits his head on a rock. Is out cold, bleeding. I scream and bolt. I can hear the group screaming it got Dave. They think I killed Dave. Target neutralized, I say. Eventually I realize I've been going in circles because I end up back at the camp. I get an idea. Trash it, throw shit around and set things on fire. Then I say. Look at this place, 50,000 people used to live in this city, now it's a ghost town, never seen anything like it. When the group comes back they see their camp trashed. They left Dave in the woods for some reason. I was really cold so I threw on some of Noah's extra clothes to keep warm. They see me. Noah. One shouts. I'm confused. Noah. They stop. MFW, I'm still using my Scottish accent. They're frozen. One girl tries to approach me. Jake pulls her back. That's not Noah anymore, he says. Noah was the class clown and had a lot of funny catchphrases, so to calm them down I do an impression of him and say what's swaggin'? This scares them even more. Apparently he said that right before he disappeared. What? Jake charges me. I run, getting sick of hearing that. He catches me. I'm bigger so I punch him and he falls. I pull him by his leg into the dark to punch him more. The group is screaming. The others are too scared to help. I beat him up while shouting Macmillan lines in a Scottish accent. It sounds like William Wallace had suddenly come out of the trees and decided to savage one of the group members. He's bloody and I run so I won't get in trouble. The group freaks out. I stagger a lot, leaving blood all over the trees and stuff. My hand hurts from punching him a ton. I scream. More screaming from the woods. I get back home, shower, and play all gillied up for real. When I return my friend's ghillie suit, he tells me that apparently there's like a hairy monster man in the woods. I'm scared until I read the newspaper. Blood trails all over the woods, 2 teens beaten and bloodied. Susie was found stuck in mud. They never found Noah. Jake and Dave ended up in the hospital. Friends say they saw Noah attack Jake and then disappear. Say the creature was dark, hairy, smelly, ran fast, was tall and gaunt, and mimicked humans. 2 years later some Anon posts about it on Cookchans/B/. Called it a skinwalker. MFW, I was a skinwalker. Macmillan would have been proud.
Dawn over Hogwarts. Not a single animal stirs in the mist. As the magical defenders begin weaving their shield, the comrades prepare. Summoned from across the globe, promised wealth they arrived. Behind the magical walls they stand ready. Ancient nuggets gripped in Doritos-stained hands. Tactical Rs are held close to massive guts. Uniforms from short shorts to asbestos-filled gas masks adorn them. Suddenly, they appear. Over the hills come mask-clad figures in black cloaks. The forms of giants and werewolves can be seen in their midst. Though some of the werewolves are oddly plush and brightly colored. Among them all are other commandos. Similarly armed and outfitted to the defenders, they begin to fire at the shield. Death Eaters join them, to little effect. After what seems like hours, the pale form of Voldemort emerges. With the wave of his wand, the impenetrable shield falls. As he moves to address his minions, a single voice cries out. Fucking finally. Voldemort's head explodes as a 7.62 by 54 mm bullet carves its way through his noseless face. Out of the stunned silence the same voice screams. Eat real fucking NATO snake boy. Pandemonium ensues. Explosives planted in the Hogwarts towers detonate, raining debris onto the magical defenders. Gunmen turn on their allies, mowing them down in cold blood. A couple of Polacks can be seen chasing a goblin and some house elves screaming about Jew magic. Dozens of furries dogpile the werewolves. Legs full of silver bullets, the beasts can only howl as they are dragged into the forest. 20 or so Death Eaters somehow manage to regroup. Their killing spells form a ring of dead as their combined shields block the bullets from all sides. A noise causes one to glance up just in time for a .308 to punch through his mask. The rest are gunned down by a handful of men in short shorts hanging from a helicopter and screaming about the liberation of Rhodesia. Back in the castle an overweight trench-coated commando locks his katana with Neville Longbottom's blade. Behind them Ivan screams Russian profanity at a group of wizards as he mows them down. His curses cause all the butterbeer in the area to transmute to vodka. A group of witches motions to a woman to come with them to shelter. She follows the girls, then out the Glock she had been using as a butt plug. The Glocknate goes off, turning the witches and trap into mulch. Harry Potter, having seen an action movie or two, grabs a fallen AR to try and defend himself. Ron does the same and immediately blows both their heads off because he's a clumsy fuck. Finally, the shooting slows. Hundreds dead on all sides. Only commandos still stand. Moving from body to body, putting bullets in some, marking others for later. One finds Malfoy still alive. The effeminate cunt is put to work on the spot. A pile of trip fags lines one wall. Everyone agrees they were definitely killed by magic that caused holes in the back of the head. The furries return from the forest, now oddly resistant to the occasional shot sent their way. Write and Drawfags work together to immediately document this glorious occasion. The now vodka is broken out and toasts to victory and the dead ring late into the night. During that drunken celebration, a man with an foul speaks up. So when will Rhodesia be liberated next? 500 tickets to Zimbabwe purchased for the next day. On a side note, did I really just say 7.62 by 54 NATO? Fuck me.
Something similar happened to me a few years ago. Be me, 15-year-old Albertan. Live in small town. Kinda out of shape but getting into shape. Start going for runs. Out one night. It's pretty dark. Decide to go for a longer run. Out in this field. Jump barbed wire into another field. Start feeling uneasy. Remember something I had been told about the field I'm in. Some girl's corpse was discovered stuffed in a couch in this field in the 80s. Lots of old ruins here as well, pioneer house that's somehow still standing. Get creeped out. Decide to be brave and not run too fast. Out of the corner of my eye I catch something in the window of the house. It darts back in. Figure it was an animal but speed up. I keep running for a bit and glance past. An arm slides out from behind the house. Very white, but sickly white. Elbows are in the wrong place. I start sprinting like hell. Look behind me again. This thing is running towards me with jerky motions. It was all elongated and fucked up. Naked, pale white skin, covered in sores. Its face was the worst. The eyes were like human eyes turned 90 degrees and bigger, plus they were pitch black. No nose. Massive mouth with red lips and rows of sharp teeth opened in an O. I'm fucking sprinting as fast as I can, hitting fucking parkour moves, but it's catching up. Up ahead is an old church. Still in use but dilapidated. I vault the fence over the line, and the thing tries to jump it, but it shrieks when it passes the property line. It stares at me and lumbers off. I got a friend to come pick me up, made it home. Still live in the area, thinking of hunting it. Does anyone know what it could be? Stops at the property line. This makes me think it's somehow prevented from stepping onto the church's territory. I've heard old stories here and there about spooky things not being able to tread on holy ground or cross running water, such as vampires and the like. Maybe the same rule applies to this freak. Something vampiric sounds likely. I wish I had more details, but there are less human-looking vampiric things out there. I think they are more animalistic and don't do any of the social deception shit. At most they may try to imitate human voices. But I have never heard of a Wendigo that respects Christian properties.
I've never posted in one of these, but last summer I had a creepy thing happen, so I guess I'll tell. It's probably no big deal. Be in passenger seat of friend's truck. His girlfriend in back with her friend. Making a long drive from Denver to a lake in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska. Women taking forever to be ready, so we leave about 5 to 6 p.m. The drive there was at least 5 hours, so it was dark for more than half the drive. Trip is unremarkable until we get into Nebraska. Everything looks creepy, tons of deer that would jump out if you weren't paying attention. Getting tired, Brothers GF's phone tells us to take a turn onto a dirt road. Seriously, middle of nowhere. Buddy and me spooked. Take out our pistols. Driving down this straight dirt road for miles, seeing eyes as we go, occasional deer. All of sudden, on right side of road a naked man is sprinting alongside road away from truck. Outrunning us at 30 miles per hour. Can't describe it, all of the sudden looks like he's flapping wings. Suddenly it's an owl, peels off and leaves us so puckered we're ripping up the seats. Story goes on a little bit from there, but that was basically the most spooky part. I would have thought I was hallucinating if my buddy hadn't seen the exact same thing. For me, it's the giant sloth. 130 plus sightings in 18 countries for over 200 years. Up to 5 captured individuals which escaped. Casts of tracks. Audio recordings. Photos of claw marks. Alleged hair and dung. Lost photos. This is so cool. Any more info you can find? Please elaborate. The Rockies has ground sloths, similar to giant sloths, but also different. Out of sightings from Patagonia, Amazonia, the Yucatan, the Ozarks, Appalachia, and the Yukon, the Amazonian accounts are the best. David Oren pieced together a description of the Mapinguari in 1993, based on interviews with more than 100 claimed eyewitnesses. From their accounts, he described the Mapinguari as a man-sized animal, no more than 1.80 meters long, with long reddish fur, backwards feet, and a monkey-like face. Later, in 2001, after speaking with more witnesses and 7 hunters who claimed to have killed specimens, Oren was able to give a presumably more accurate description of the animal. According to his 2001 paper, the Mapinguari is a very heavy, powerfully built animal, up to 2 meters, 6 feet 6 inches, tall when standing bipedally, which breaks the roots of trees with its steps. It is covered in long and coarse fur which ranges in color from reddish to brownish to blackish, and has a muzzle similar to that of a horse or a burro, though shorter, which is armed with 4 peg-shaped canine teeth. Its formidable claws are shaped like those of the giant anteater, Myrmecophaga tridactyla, but are the size of those of the giant armadillo, Priodontes maximus. Its tail is short, and broad, or large and thick. Additionally, Luis Jorge Salinas claimed that the animals he saw had humped backs, strange tortoise-like necks, and chests devoid of hair, which is also a feature of the Quita herrera. According to most accounts it can walk either quadrupedally or bipedally, but the bipedal gait is often described as unsteady. Salinas describes a Charlie Chaplin gait. It is said to be nocturnal and crepuscular, i.e. active at night and twilight, and feeds on vegetation including bacaba, Enocarpus bacaba, and babassu palms, Atalia speciosa, which it twists to the ground and tears apart in order to feed on the palm heart and berry-like fruits. It is said to be migratory, descending from the Andean foothills around February in Acre, near the Peruvian border. Its tracks are found in the ground around vegetation even during the dry season, when the earth is baked hard. Its first call is a low roar reminiscent of thunder, while the other is a very loud, higher-pitched cry just like a human shouting, but with a growl at the end. This second cry often impresses and terrifies people who claim to have heard it, claimed eyewitness Inocencio, who initially mistook the cry for that of a man, described it as wild and dismal, horrible, deafening and inhuman. Oren described a call heard by himself as being extremely strong and of steady pitch, lasting for up to 45 seconds, and resembling jets flying over low. Grunts, growls, and groans are also sometimes described. A very strong and unpleasant smell is frequently described, compared to a mixture of faces and rotting flesh, garlic vine, manso aliacea, and a fetid peccary, or simply described as just the worst odor they ever smelled. The smell leaves people lightheaded and nauseous, or even renders them unconscious. Most famously, it is reputed to be invulnerable to bullets and arrows unless hit in the navel, the eyes, the mouth, or sometimes elsewhere on the head. This invulnerability is sometimes attributed to thick or crocodile-like skin, or to the animal's hair. Hunters who claim to have shot specimens say they used special solid lead shotgun slugs fired at the head, a special shot used for hunting tapirs fired at the navel from a .16 caliber shotgun, and all the bullets of a .38 caliber revolver, emptied into the chest. David Oren has collected over 100 accounts of the Mapinguari or animals like it, and as of 2002 had interviewed 7 hunters who claimed to have shot specimens. 3 hunters claim to have actually captured living Mapinguaris in quite recent times, but all 3 animals escaped because the men were unable to bear the stench. A group of Kanamari Indians living in the Rio Jurua Valley claimed to have raised 2 infant ground sloths on bananas and milk after their mother was scared off by hunters. After some time they progressed to feeding on foliage, but after 1 or 2 years the unbearable smell of their skin prompted the Indians to release them. The Segamai is a cryptid reported from the Peruvian Amazon near the Vilcabamba mountain range, described as a fearsome sloth-like animal. It is usually considered a regional name for the Mapinguari on account of its almost identical description. It is described as a cow-sized animal which can walk both quadrupedally and bipedally, with dark matted fur, said to resemble the fibers surrounding the leaf stems of an Enocarpus bataa palm, and a snout similar to a giant anteater's. It is said to live in caves in the remote cloud and foothill forests, where it feeds on Cyclanthaceae plants and palm piths. The Makagenga are terrified of it due to its reputedly aggressive behavior, and it has a number of alleged characteristics in common with the Mapinguari. It is said to be impervious to bullets, has a terrible roar, and supposedly generates an odor which stupefies or knocks out anyone who comes close to it. In 1997, anthropologist Glenn Shepard Jr. suggested to some Makagenga who told him about the Segamai that it might be a bear. The Makagenga, who knew spectacled bears, Tremarctos ornatus, well, expressed great surprise and affirmed that the two animals are completely different. One of the tribe matter-of-factly told him that he had seen a Segamai at Lima's Natural History Museum when he was a student, and when Shepard checked, he discovered that the museum had a diorama featuring a model of a giant ground sloth. However, the student had never seen the Segamai himself, and had previously assumed it to be mythical. To those who aren't interested, I'm sorry for the wall of text. The Oe is a bear-like cryptid reported from Ecuador. A Shuar source describes it as a bear-man hybrid with an odor strong enough to knock a grown man unconscious, which feeds on flower nectar and is not dangerous to man, leading to it formerly being hunted by the Shuar. A picture drawn by the Shuar who gave this description depicts the Oe as a man-like being with shaggy red hair on its head and back, a long tongue, and strongly hooked claws. A different source describes it as a gorilla-like monster which is dangerous, so much so that women and children fear to leave their houses during the night. However, because the Oe is too large to enter houses, they can kill it by spearing it from within their doors. A colleague of J. Richard Greenwell claimed to have seen a ground sloth outside a cave in Ecuador in the 1980s. It was described as a 10-long animal with shaggy hair and a horse-like snout, and was capable of standing bipedally to browse on vegetation, and walking quadrupedally. To those who aren't interested, I'm sorry for the wall of text. The Oe is a bear-like cryptid reported from Ecuador. A Shuar source describes it as a bear-man hybrid with an odor strong enough to knock a grown man unconscious, which feeds on flower nectar and is not dangerous to man, leading to it formerly being hunted by the Shuar. A picture drawn by the Shuar who gave this description depicts the Oe as a man-like being with shaggy red hair on its head and back, a long tongue, and strongly hooked claws. A different source describes it as a gorilla-like monster which is dangerous, so much so that women and children fear to leave their houses during the night. However, because the Oe is too large to enter houses, they can kill it by spearing it from within their doors. A colleague of J. Richard Greenwell claimed to have seen a ground sloth outside a cave in Ecuador in the 1980s. It was described as a 10-long animal with shaggy hair and a horse-like snout, and was capable of standing bipedally to browse on vegetation, and walking quadrupedally.
I have some, so let me ramble on and do an intro. Intro. Be me. Get government job. It's for the local park system. Be new, so I get shit jobs. One such shit job is trying to get the ghetto parks in control. This includes lockup of buildings, maintenance, and cleanup. I and the other new guys in charge of keep them clean. Also groundwork, like mowing and garbage runs. No one else wants to do it or lasts long, so ghetto parks are shit. No one cares, not even the upper-ups, so I and the other new dudes wage war. We do this by loading up on wasp spray, worse than mace, pellet guns, and some other shit. Get ourselves some new uniforms on the down low, military surplus. No vehicles outside a shit golf cart and a few old riding mowers. Someone scares us up a shit box Jeep. Throw on LEDs, a loud as fuck horn, and get a push bar. During this entire time, we've seen weird fucking shit. Day 1. Worst day when we got told of shit job of park. Go to park, it's shit, never taken care of. Actually had a cop show up and meet us. Basically said watch yourself, don't tell management but get a gun for protection. Everyone is shitting themselves. The crew is 2 Mexican kids and native outside of the mostly black, and a few whites crew. Everyone is chill, talking DBZ, boobs, and basically pointing out weird shit. Some woods, read dead trees, surround shit here. Everything is dead from plant life to animals, it's odd, spooks native bro. We begin our preparations, which detail a survey of the grounds. Absolutely destroyed. Everything is shit. None of the park vehicles fucked with but nothing was touched, obviously. Black nerdy kid deduces it hasn't been in use since 1995. This is due to a receipt we found and not much else in the buildings. 4 take the golf cart. Others walk and we keep in contact via walkies we found and got running. Bunch of teens and 2 20-somethings working a park. It was chaos of shit talking and finding voodoo altars. Voodoo altars of candles, pictures and chickens. It was fucking insane, black kids spooked. Native bro is a mix of Christian and native faith. Begins going fucking W40K commissar on the altars. Begins pouring out alcohol from bottles at the altar. Lights it up. Shouts some shit and does a prayer. Everyone now spooked, but encouraged. We spend the day rioting through the park. Burning voodoo altars. Find a cage during chaos. There is a literal fucking black kid in a cage. He's crying, almost confused his cries for a cat. We nope and bust him out, call the cops. Kid keeps saying it was his grandma who put him there. Cops come, asks us WTF is happening. Nopes and has us point shit out where we found it. Basically said we fucked up and should GTFO. We got cocky and said fuck that noise. After cops left, we started to mark trees that need to be cut down. Mostly shit with ash borer beetles or are dead. 3 black women come up. Tell us to fuck off. Black kids spook, some white kids spooked. Everyone else ready to wage war. Chase off the black women. Finish our work for the day. Lock up but provide our own heavy-duty chains and locks. Shut each and every building down. Tell park management the shit. Get responsive, LOLK finish work. Day 6. Days 2 to 5 are quiet. We've cleaned up almost all the trash. Marks 45% of the trees. Find hobo camps abandoned. Found animal remains and skulls. Find animal cages in the 3 ponds. Found a fucking tree of panties. Found tons of makeshift memorials to dead people. Find an entire building abandoned and taken over by trees. It has tons of unopened gear and shit from the 90s. Hard hats, cones, etc. We make use of what we can, trash the rest. Day 6 continued. We open up the bathrooms finally, we all fear this. Some wise ass bought gas masks, gloves and painter's suits. A handful suit up and enter it. It is destroyed and smells like hell. Fucking nigs broken and kept shitting in clogged toilets. Someone had shit smeared on the walls. Shit stalagmites and stalactites everywhere. We get to the women's bathrooms and shower rooms. Mattresses with blood, condoms, and fabric straps. We found a rape room, we think. Call the cops again. While nosing around. Find the abortion pile. Someone was giving abortions, we think. And piling up the fetuses in a corner. We nope hard. We wait for the cops. They, once again tell us we fucked up by checking it out. Said no other crew did this shit. LMAO WTF officer forget, we do work. Learn the cops would tell previous crew to GTFO. Previous crews would chill and collect checks. Some cop come out of the grape room panicking. LOL why all the black cops scares. Some mural on the wall we didn't catch. Couldn't make it out but it freaked the black cops out. Park shut down this time. Cops tell us to stay out of shit. We come back day 7 and just meander. Clean up and wash down the crew area and office. Bleach, bleach, bleach. Disinfect. Find wallets, lost and found bins, old computers. Cops come in and check us throughout the day. Sort of follow us all day. Someone catches a glimpse of white vans. Like whitewashed FedEx vans. See that these black women in white robes are coming in and out of the bathroom. They seem to be carrying bundles in white towels. Black kids spooked, as are the white kids. Native bro is getting the same look he had with the altars. Native bro says when we can, we remove the filth in the bathrooms. Cops leave, we are stuck in this loop for 8 more days. Day 20. Clean up the park near entirety. Management tells us to STFU and makes us sign NDAs. We started to bring guns. Native bro brings his Jeep. We work on Jeep. Formulate night patrols. Day 20 continued. We do night patrols to keep park safe and clean. Find and scare druggies and hobos and prostitutes. We catch wannabe witches and Wiccans. Discover weirder shit at night. Some such things are, through day 20 to 99. Someone wheeled in a car, burnt out, and covered it in candles. Someone set a wheelchair on a raft with a dummy on it in a pond. A literal fucking llama wandering the park. An orgy with people in masks. The cat tree, every night, hundreds of cats. The tricycle cemetery. Suicide trees. Nooses. A cache of guns and bloody knives, cop call number 33. A Merlin-looking dude attending his mushroom crop, friendly, left him alone. We kept the park safe and clean. It slowly returned to life. Plant growth, animals. Some people come back, mostly ghetto trash. We even got management to fix and open up the tennis and basketball court. More people, less weird shit. But weird shit still. Soon the playground opens up too. Someone left a dead pig on it. Someone even killed sheep and left all 4 at the park's entries and exits. Found a rape victim once. She screamed at us not to call the cops. Ow, we did. Turns out she met up some dudes online to fuck. They had more dudes than she thought. Wasn't rape. But a gangbang gone wrong. She didn't want us calling the cops due to a dildo glued to her ass. Find weirder shit still. The cicada pyramid. Just millions of them stacked in a clearing. Found dogs tied to trees almost mummified. More weird shit, but I'm rushing to work. No longer at the parks but working with tech shit now. I personally disagree, but whatever. Here's mine. Be me. 8 or 9, lying in bed not sleeping like a boss. Start to get this really weird feeling that I need to look outside. Ignore it, try to play that game with my hands where you pretend they're alligator monsters. Fun for a little while, but that feeling is really strong. Eventually say fuck it and get out of bed to go look out window. We live in a pretty heavily forested part of the town, so all I see is a bunch of pine trees. Must be a strong wind, one tree in particular is getting beat to shit. Get a weird feeling about it and then it hits me. It's the only tree moving. Looks like it's having a seizure. It was really unnatural, it felt like it was an artifact glitched so. Suddenly the tree literally fucking flies into the goddamn sky and vanishes. I tactically shit myself and run back to bed and stay under the covers until dawn. It sounds goofy, but just imagine how pants-shittingly terrifying this was to see in person.
I have a recent skinwalker encounter that I'd like to get off my chest. Now, I'm not the best writer and have spent some time pre-writing this to ensure the details are all included as well as relevant pictures. I'm going to forewarn you, it's not really that exciting, no one died and for that I'm fortunate. Be me, 24 years old. Biologist currently finishing up PhD at a top Baptist university in Central Texas. I've been in state for a few years now, however originally came from up north. I've made it more than halfway through the program and are finishing up my research projects in preparation to graduate with my PhD. My research focuses on mosquito-borne illnesses and I intend to utilize my PhD and my research interests as a ticket to direct commission as a medical entomologist for the Army. A lot of my research consists of field work. This includes mosquito larvae collections. As I conduct a lot of fieldwork, I often find myself in remote places, including state and national parks. Over the last few years I've been collaborating with a former military medical entomologist. The reason I had this encounter was fueled by the collaboration I have with this entomologist. During our collaborative work, I've traveled to mostly every state park in central Texas. This including Fort Parker, which is handily located west of the Piney Woods region of Texas. The reason I mention this is that I've heard of other cryptid stories, including skinwalkers in East Texas, and Fort Parker was a few hours from Piney Woods, where another /X poster encountered one. I never saw anything weird up to this point, but believe what I saw was a skinwalker due to the sheer proximity to the Piney Woods and the short time it would take to get there. Now this day, I wasn't in the Piney Woods or Fort Parker, however had traveled to Meridian State Park. Meridian is in central/eastern Texas, south of Dallas and considered the heart of Bosque County. It was around 3 hours from Fort Parker and 4 or 5 from the Piney Woods region. I was tasked with doing some mosquito larvae surveys to see what species were present, and this had become a routine activity, so I thought nothing of it. The park was eerily deserted for a Sunday morning with a few campsites set up, and a few park rangers working. I quickly signed in at the ranger station, showed my collection credentials and was given a parking sticker or receipt for my car windshield. The weather was quite good, with a temperature around 74, and partially cloudy skies. I parked my car at one of the parking lots next to the lake, specifically next to Lakeside Campground Premium Shelter. 4. I had counted no more than 5 cars, and from memory remember seeing a bunch of Taiwanese tourists. I applied bug spray. As a biologist I've learned a lot about mosquito-borne illness, tick-borne illness, and I wouldn't be a happy camper to be on the receiving end of any pathogen. I grabbed my rucksack out of my trunk, as well as my collection gear, larval dipper, strainer, Eppendorf tubes, 50 milliliters conical tubes. Now I'm usually legally carrying when I go into state parks, this due to being from the north originally and having to deal with predators. Now I'm no/commando and don't have a Chinese girlfriend SKS, but I do have a rusty 9mm SNWM and PM 2.0. However, on this day, I chose not to bring it because of the humidity being pretty bad. My original plan was to hike the Bosque Trail and cross over onto the Shinnery Ridge Trail, sampling any streams I passed. I started out on the Civilian Conservation Corps Bridge, 6, and made my way north on the Bosque Trail. It was pretty amazing at first. The forest was alive with insect activity, bird calls and a slight breeze which rustled the trees. The Bosque Trail at this point crosses over into the smaller Little Forest Junior Trail, which is about 0.8 miles long. I stopped at Wildflower Field as it was the first time I visited the park and I wanted to see some of the sights. The field was mostly dead, the wildflowers trampled, withered, and covered in weeds. I reluctantly continued along the trail and saw maybe one other person the quarter mile I was on the Junior Trail. He asked what I was doing and I briefly explained why I was carrying all the gear. We parted ways and I eventually made it back on the Bosque Trail. After a while I stopped at B Ledge, which is a rock formation overlooking Lake Meridian. It was an amazing spot, so I decided to take a picture there which I could use for FB or whatever. Now as I left the ledge the weird things started to happen and they continued to intensify as I went down the trail. This is the typical setup and an okay pic of the ruck. A quarter mile from the B Ledge I started to encounter large objects blocking the trail path. Several logs seems to have been dragged onto the trail. Additionally, fallen trees were spread out along the next quarter mile stretch. Crossing over them was quite difficult and there was quite a lot of them. This continued for several hundred feet until the trail steeply went up the side of the mountain. It seems that at some point the rangers had carved out stone stairs into the rock face, however they were deteriorated and at this point hard to traverse. The trail had a long railing made from what looked to be an outdoor power cord, however due to COVID I didn't use it. The disrepair continued to intensify as I made my way deeper onto the trail. At the start, the trail markers were shiny metallic rectangles with a blue indicator nailed to trees. However, they soon transitioned into just blue spray paint on the bark. I constantly kept getting lost on the trail. Now I'm not a person who gets lost easily. I've had a lot of hiking experience and consistently went on collections in various state parks. Upon reaching the first stream, I crouched to unpack my ruck and started to collect larvae using the dipper. The water wasn't that deep, it wasn't flowing and had become stagnant with a deep brownish color. Using my larval dipper, I collected water and strained it for mosquito larvae. I made several collections and ultimately found several species, including Culex pipiens quinquefasciatus, a very common southern species. Pick of rock stairs parts. Sorry for the weird formatting, the word limit is pretty low. After taking my samples, I carefully packed my rucksack to ensure the samples wouldn't be disturbed during transit. From experience, if it's too shaky, they won't be able to float at the water's surface and breathe and ultimately die. It is much easier to identify an adult mosquito versus a larvae, and I don't want to have to identify 100 dead larvae. As I continued to venture forth, the trail started to get worse and worse. It reached a point where I became pissed off and thought to myself, why the heck does it look this way, etc., what are the rangers doing, etc. I started to take GPS tagged pictures, which I could pass off to the rangers for trail repair operations. At this point, I doubled that any common person, let alone a weekend hiker, would be able to successfully navigate this trail, and thought it posed a significant safety risk. I have to go to class now. I'm not going to be able to post for a few hours, but I'll be back in a while to continue. Continuing onward down the trail, I reached a dense area of woods. It seems that out of nowhere, the trail enters a thick brush and stays in it for quite a while. The thick brush had minimal undergrowth, but darkened the trail due to the thick canopy created by the overlapping trees. Now I am a religious person. Thinking back, I should have realized that darkness ultimately relates to evil and should have been forewarned of continuing. Entering the dense wood seems to have transformed everything around me, not physically but in a sense where it felt different. The bird calls disappeared, the insects were silent, and the trees were not rustling anymore. Slightly alarmed, I continued onward, as I was approximately an eighth of the way through the Bosque Trail and had several more streams needed to be collected, at which could take several hours. It was 1 p.m. at this point. After a while I felt like I was being watched, and I started to get very anxious. Now I'm not a perfect person, but I had a really strong feeling I was being watched. I usually don't get feelings like this, so when I experience them it's usually wise to trust them. I scanned the area and didn't see anything, so I continued onward. There was still no noise, so I increased my pace so that I could get out of this creepy area quickly. I soon reached a second stream and decided to sample it. Like the first, the water was dark and stagnant. Unpacked my gear and quickly worked to collect samples. I found a few varied insect larvae, including several mosquito larvae and several dragonfly larvae. I removed the dragonfly larvae as they kill mosquito larvae, and if I had left them, all the mosquitoes would have been dead before I returned to campus. As I was packing up, I started to smell a stagnant copper smell. Now it is hard to explain, but the best explanation is a mixture of blood, roadkill, and death. Sorry for the late response. I'm having a difficult time writing this next statement, but I'll give it my best go. As a man of science, I've learned a lot about the biology of living creatures. I've been able to extract mosquito blood meals and determine the blood meal host species using mitochondrial DNA. I've gene-edited and made transgenic mosquitoes, with edited receptors. I believe in a rational explanation for everything, as I've experienced a structured order to nature. At first I freaked out a little bit internally, but had a strong belief that some armadillo decided to die near the trail and his decomposing corpse was responsible for the smell. Now the trail was still in a thick part of brush, so not seeing a corpse wasn't too alarming. I continued down the trail heading toward the northern bend in the Bosque Trail, which can be seen on the trail map. Upon reached the northern bend, I stopped for a few seconds. I still felt like I was being followed, but couldn't smell the stagnant copper anymore, so I partially relaxed, looked at the map, then continued onward, southwestern down the trail. After a short while the smell returned. I was far enough from the stream, that it would be very unlikely that it wafted this far. This startled and concerned me, as it isn't normal for so many corpses to be near trails, and I've never experienced something like this before. I reached a small bridge and the thick forest started to clear out into where I could see for a short distance between the trees. I stopped for a minute to look at the map and my phone, as the trail had sorta dissipated. The bridge had a small stream running underneath it, but I reluctantly still felt awkward, so I didn't sample it. While looking for where the trail continued toward, I found a large black object standing in my peripheral vision, more or so 300 feet or 100 meters away. My eyes adjusted to it and the image focused into what looked like a person standing, 6 feet tall. However, the face was wrong and it was covered in fur, not clothing. I looked away for a second and looked back and the object disappeared. I started to internally freak out, but soon found where the trail started back up and the object was standing in the opposite direction when I saw it. Nope.jpg down the trail, and ensured I kept my eyes scanning near where I saw the object. My biggest concern at this point was something was following me, possibly a large animal, and I rather not make the 6 o'clock news. While continuing down the trail, the smell still lingered, and I saw it again, this time around 300 feet or 100 meters away distance again. This time I noticed that it was some sort of animal, I assumed a deer, standing on its back feet. I stopped to observe it and noticed it was walking on 2 feet, very awkwardly, and the fur seemed to have large missing spots. I knew it wasn't human, as humans don't walk that way, nor if injured walk that way. It had a very primal animalistic walk. I had blinked and at some point it disappeared. I got really spooked and almost started sprinting down the trail. I covered a mile of harsh terrain in about 5 minutes. I made it to a clearing where I could see across the lake and toward where I had parked. At this point I could hear something from the direction I came in. It seemed to be slowly getting louder. "Bill, where'd go, Bill, go you?" My mind pieced together that it was saying, "Bill, where'd you go?" I have no clue who Bill is, and the voice didn't sound human. It's as if an animal's voice box was being forced to pronounce human words. It sounded raspy and primal. This absolutely scared the ever-living shit out of me. I kept a steady pace down the trail. I kept scanning my surroundings and cursing at myself for not bringing my pistol. The smell intensified, and I'm pretty sure it was following me closely. I made due diligence to ensure I wasn't being outmaneuvered or flanked. Whatever it was hunting me, and I had around 70 pounds of gear on me and was ultimately a slow-moving target. I eventually made it to the eastern campsites marked with a picnic bench on the map and felt a sigh of relief. I'm not sure if these things hunt in open terrain, but I would have a good view of it if it left the tree line. To my surprise, there was an older middle-aged lady camped out there. She had a dog with her, and the dog was going absolutely nuts, barking. At first I thought I spooked the dog, but after looking at it for a while, it was barking at something in the tree line, not me. After a while it whimpered and ran away from the tree line and toward the lady's tent, and she called his name. Let's say Fido because I can't remember it. I socially distanced a hello wave, and continued to awkwardly run down the trail carrying my gear. It was quite peaceful and quiet for a short distance down the trail, and eventually I reached a road. I felt guilty about how that lady was probably going to get murdered by whatever that was, and felt fortunate I escaped. About 30 minutes later I stumbled out on a Forest Service road. The trail seemed to wind onto the road and just abruptly end. Now from my recollection, this is the road on the southwestern corner of the map, which parallels the trail. The smell started to come back and I started to panic again. I heard weird Fido, which really freaked me out because whatever was saying that was mirroring the lady. Now the trail didn't have a good indicator of where it started back up. I was freaking out as the noise was increasing. I started to head, I presume, north on the road, and eventually figured out it was the wrong way as it didn't follow to contour of the road on the map. I double time it back and see a park ranger truck driving down the road toward me. I flagged him down and asked him where the Bosque Trail started back up. To my surprise, the trail actually backs onto the road, where you have to walk down the road following spray-painted dots, and eventually it goes back into the woods. I'm sure the ranger knew what was up because he was very brief and told me to stay on the trails. I asked him about if there were any predators in the woods which I should worry about. His eyes got real big and he told me to stay on the trails, not to deviate, and to probably call it a day. He took off speeding down the road and I awkwardly sprinted south down the road, and eventually found the trail again. The whole time, in the distance I heard where trail back start. The fucker was mocking me and was stalking me while I talked to the ranger. I hauled my ass down the trail and eventually reached a clearing. This clearing being the southern bend of the trail where it curves off east into a straight line. This area was quite open, almost reminded me of a rice field as there was swamps on either sides of the trail, and it was elevated on a grass mound 8 feet up and 10 feet wide. I continued in a sprint across the mound and reached the end of the trail where it loops to my car. When I reached the bend which led toward where I parked, I stopped and looked back. It was standing on the mound near the forest opening, 200 feet. Just staring at me. It wasn't on the 2 legs anymore, however, on all 4s. The face looked honestly like the descriptions I've seen on here. It was sunken in, red dots in black eyes, etc. It also seemed to be smirking. I booked it to my car, threw my ruck in the trunk and literally did not stop till I reached campus. Now, I'm not sure if it's real. I had packed a good meal, lots of water, and wasn't dehydrated. I'm in good mental health, or as best I can be in a PhD program. It wasn't a deer, a bear, or anything that I've seen before. Since then I've not wanted to go Innawoods, or collecting, rightfully so, without another person. I'm sorry that this was uneventful, but I really wanted to get it off my chest. This is a picture of where on the map the trail ends and where I saw it.
Really shitty green text incoming. The summer after senior year is filled with many happy memories that many of us will never forget. This is not one of those memories. Be me, 18, living in the Willamette Valley of Oregon. Senior year is about to get out and it's been warm lately, let's fucking rage mate.jpg. Plan huge senior skip day party up by a lake a town over. There are actually 2 lakes near the next town. One is lower than the other, and the higher one is warmer and used to fill the second one during the summer. We decided the best bet for the party would be at the higher lake, because less cops, more forest to run and hide in, and more privacy for our heathen ways. Fast forward a couple days to the day of the party. A metric fuckton of people are headed up to swim and party with us. Probably more like 20, but we filled 2 Suburban and 1 pickup. Driving up, everyone is cramped and excited, singing along to songs and drinking. Pretty fun time. The road we were on was pretty windy, with a steep hill going up on one side and smaller downward sloping hill leading down to the lake on the other. We pull off to the shoulder and a small army of hormones unloads into the water. Water is warm, girls are pretty enough, and the drinks are flowing. We don't even hear the man come up on us. Suddenly a girl, let's call her Brittany, starts screaming and pointing at him. We all look and kind of freak out because he has a gun in the crook of his arm. He laughs and introduces himself as Wayne. Drunken friend Nick offers him a beer and me and a couple others start talking a bit with him. Eventually the issue of the gun comes up and Wayne explains that he's hunting something in the woods. I remember this specifically because he was pretty vague about what he was after, and I was thinking we're going to relieve Deliverance tonight and I'm just praying I'm not going to be Bobby and have to squeal like a pig. Of course drunk ass Nick tells him our plans for the night, camping, partying, etc. Wayne gets a little quiet and says that tonight might not be the best night for that. Ignore that shit'll drunk teen.pdf. Eventually Wayne fucks off to go hunt Sasquatch or whatever. Side note about Wayne, last summer he was actually killed up by that lake. There was an article in the papers about him being some master tracker and living out in those woods for long periods of time. I don't think his death had anything to do with the later events of this story, but the general consensus around the town at the time of his death was that the news story was bullshit. Anyways, a girl Shannon decided that her and her boyfriend would go set up camp. I guess that's what the kids are calling it these days. They take the pickup up the mountain more to the site and proceed to touch genitals. Couple hours later we say fuck swimming and all pile back into the cars. Because the spare seats on the pickup left, some people have to pile in back of the Suburbans. Something seemed a little off at the time, but we chalked it up to the booze. We keep driving up the road counting the mile markers as we went up. The road to the site was a shitty gravel road off the main road, past mile marker 20. We head up the road a ways and have to stop because a tree is across the path. Not that large of a tree, so we all pile out and get it off to the side. We all climb back into the cars and once again something seems off. Did we forget someone? Asks Nick. We concluded that we had the 18 people that we needed, but something still felt odd. Eventually we make it up to the site. Obviously this wasn't an actual campsite and I have no idea how my friends found it, but apparently they had gone to this spot a few times before and never had any problems with the law. It was about 7 miles down the gravel road, deep into the forest of evergreens. It was surrounded on all sides by thick walls of trees. It was a pretty good-sized spot, but more importantly it was secluded, which was exactly what we needed for the night. There was a large fire pit in the middle, but the stones around it had apparently been scattered around the clearing. The pickup is parked there but no people are outside and the camp is like 10% set up. We decide to fuck with the Shannon and her boyfriend Kyle, but when we came up on the truck we saw them fully clothed just kind of sitting in the back. Nick bangs his hand on the window and I swear they about jumped out of their skins. They realize who it is and come out, a little shaken but laughing. We ask what had them so rattled and they explain that they had started setting up camp about an hour ago. We know what they did for the first hour or two, when they stopped to have a smoke break. They said they had been by the fire pit when a really gross smell started to come from the woods. They had gone to the edge of the clearing when they had heard low voices babbling off in the woods. They noped the fuck out and locked themselves in the truck. Immediately we were blamed for fucking with them until I pointed out that about an hour ago we were all trying to move a tree that they left for us in the middle of the road. All around confusion when they said there had been no tree on the way up, but whatever, Oregon has a lot of trees and they fall over sometimes because trees are stupid like that. These two were probably just paranoid from the weed. We finish setting up the camp as the sun begins to set and begin the preparations for the night. We make some food, but with 20 people it goes pretty quickly. We continue drinking, smoking, and having a good time, as the sun got lower and disappeared. It was about 10:30 when one of the girls comes running out of the woods screaming bloody murder. Everyone stops what they're doing and listens to her sob about a person out in the woods. She said his back was to her and he was just kind of looking at the ground. When she called out to it, it raised its head and started twitching. This was when she realized it wasn't one of us and got the hell out of there. Most of the guys there were drunk and immediately angry at this guy in the woods. We decided it must be Wayne fucking with us, and so an elite squad of drunken high schoolers armed with varying sizes of branches went out towards where she saw it. We split up briefly in the woods, which was a very eerie feeling, and after about 15 minutes we decided we had scared Wayne off. We were regrouping back at the camp when the smell started again. The only thing I can describe it as is the smell of burnt hair plus the metallic smell of having a bloody nose, only 10 times worse. One or two of the drunker people actually vomited. One of the guys, Sam, decides he's had enough and wants to go back. After some debate we decided that he was probably sober enough to drive and that we would let him take a full pickup load back to his house. The girl from the woods, her boyfriend, Sam, and a second girl leave in the truck. The smell had died down quite a bit. Don't want to be labeled a pussy. Ignore that shittlemay-drunk-teen.pdf. We continue drinking and having fun, ignoring the feeling of something being off. Eventually I have to pee, so my friends Fletcher and Heston, referred to as Skeeter by our friends, walk down the gravel road a few hundred feet to drain the main vein. As we're peeing we notice someone in the middle of the road a little ways down. I'm a little uneasy, but Skeeter is a big dude, went on to play college football as a linebacker, so I figure we'd going to be okay. We walk up on the person, who has their back to us once again. I recognize that sweatshirt. Sam is standing in the middle of the road, in the dark, looking at the ground. Once again something seems off but I can't quite place it, so we start to call out to him. No response. Start walking towards him and his head lifts up and can see him twitching. I finally realized what was so off. The woods around us are dead silent and have been for some time. I stop my two friends and whisper this to them. Skeeter doesn't think it's a big deal, but Fletcher is an avid hunter and agrees that something isn't right. We look back at Sam and he is about half as far away as he was before, back still turned and twitching, looking like he was doubled over, silently laughing. That did it for Skeeter and we all sprint back to the campground. The rest of the group is looking at us worriedly because all of us, even the giant-ass Skeeter, are pale as a sheet, stammering about how we need to leave. There is a large argument about how none of us can drive because we're all too drunk and that if we're trying to mess with them it's not very funny. The smell comes back, worse this time, and I actually vomited, mostly beer. Branches begin to snap around the outskirts of the camp. We can only hear this because the forest hasn't hit unmute yet. Fletcher, the hunter, looks like he's about to shit himself as he points out that a four-legged animal wouldn't make sounds like that when walking. Only a bipedal one. That's when we hear it. A low guttural voice comes out of the woods. Give me a fucking beer. Would have been comical if I wasn't already shitting myself and the voice had been normal. It sounded like a dog mixed with a woman screaming, with irregular pauses and volume adjustments. Help me. Fuckers. Mass fucking panic. People running to cars, manage to get one of the subs filled and send it off with the designated drunk driver, my friend Nick. We fill the other Suburban and I'm left outside to put out the fire. Well, drunk Anon, 18 years ain't a bad run. Dead fucking sprint to throw the water bucket over the fire, Usain Bolt it back to the car. Probably could have gotten a full ride if someone timed me. Dive over the 2 full rows of seats and take my spot in the very back. We make it back to the main road and are about halfway back to town when we see the other Suburban in a ditch with everyone around it. Drunk-ass Nick crashed. Nick won't really meet eyes with anyone and is muttering something under his breath. I get closer to him and realize he's reciting the Hail Mary under his breath. He won't acknowledge me and looks pale as a sheet. The smell is back. We are trying to figure out what to do when the whole road is lit up like day. One of those huge, lifted trucks with about 1 million lights on it pulls up to us. It stops and shines its lights on us for what seems like an hour, probably more like a minute though. The lights cut off and Wayne hops out, his gun in hand. Pretty uneventful from here, crams the people from First Suburban into his pickup. Asks each one of us for our names before he lets anyone get back into any car. Drops us all at our friend's house and leaves. Nick gets a fat ticket and a suspended license for DUI and leaving the scene of the accident, but his mom's Suburban seems okay. He killed himself about 3 months later. He had been complaining about lack of sleep and I think the whole experience really fucked with him. Skeeter and I ran into Wayne again, later that summer at the lake. We saw his truck at a popular swimming hole and went to ask a few questions. He seemed pretty honest about most things until I asked him why he had been so intent on asking us all of our names the night he picked us up because we assumed he was planning on reporting us to the Rangers or something, but we never heard anything about it, besides Nick. I'll never forget his answer. When I pulled up to you guys I counted 17 people, but when I asked for your names I only got 16. One of your little friends walked back into the woods when I had my lights on him. Of course it sounded like bullshit to me until I began to think of the events that night. Starting with the swimming hole, there had been something off about the trip that I hadn't realized until we had gotten into the cars. There had always been an extra person with us. I think they slipped in during the swimming and slipped out when we were moving the tree. It came back in when we sent out our little hunting party and must have slipped back out when we were all drinking, only to come back into the group when we were all shitting ourselves trying to get out of there. That's why I had to sit in the back, because we had an extra person that put us over the seat limit. I don't think it was ever in my car though. I think my friend Nick noticed it in his car and that's what made him crash. That's what made him cry and pray that night, and I guarantee that's what made him kill himself. Sounds like something from a movie. Local Wayne came out of nowhere, warn you people. Of course stupid teenager won't listen. Proceed to get fucked by Skinwalker whatever. Link to CBS 13 KVAL News. Sheriff, Mountain Man's murder under investigation.
Fucking shit, my deceased grandpa told me something similar to that when I was a kid. Weird thing is that we live in another continent and hemisphere than Sardinia. This shit really scared me. I'm not good at green text, so bear with me. Keep in mind he died in the early 2000s at the ripe old age of 115, and that's what is recorded. Pretty sure he could have been older since records in the third world aren't exactly reliable. Be my grandpa. Be in late teens, early 20s. Live in Latin America. Live in a valley. Live off farming and mining. Be absolutely rural. Be absolutely dirt poor. To make you see how backwards that village is, the electricity didn't arrive until the 1970s. No gringos, we aren't in Mexico, there are a lot more countries. In fact, we're closer to Antarctica than to the US. Anyways, to live by, they either farm for most of the year or work in the mines. And I do mean work like in the Middle Ages, with pretty much the same tools, pickaxes, and the likes. All manual labor. One day, late evening, going out of what I guess was a 14-hour shift in the mine. Gotta do that daily grind. Other workers are already leaving and preparing to do the roughly 7 kilometers, don't know how much is that in Neanderthal units, walk back to town, walking down the mountains and through the forest. Gramps says he leaves as one of the last of his group to leave. Tries to hurry to catch up to the others ahead of him. Doing that walk alone is hella boring, even more after a long day of hard work and carrying your stuff. I've done it in modern times, I've been absolutely demolished by that walk, don't know how he did it, and I'm a fairly average guy, 1.73 tall, 65 kilograms, my gramps was shorter and lighter than me and had to carry his work equipment while I just had to carry my ass, guess I'm a wuss. Anyways, the group ahead of him is a couple curves down the road, Gramps said he could hear them talking but not see them, trying to walk faster. Suddenly he hears someone calling him from the sides, near the road but behind the trees. As you're guessing, this is rural area in the middle of bumfuck nowhere in the third world. Everyone has a strong rural accent, but not this. As you're guessing, this is rural area in the middle of bumfuck nowhere in the third world. Everyone has a strong rural accent, but not this time. Said it's a pretty clear, educated, fine voice, like out of the radio with no accent. Gramps pays attention and out comes a finely dressed guy. Also mentions a faint smell out of the ordinary. The man keeps calling my Gramp. Gramp takes a few steps closer. The guy is well groomed, no facial hair, dressed as an aristocrat for the time. Guy tells Gramps he will make him rich if he comes with him. Behind him there are bars of gold. I have to mention the mine was used for copper and gold, however those weren't processed there, just extracted and sent off to somewhere else. These supposedly were the typical bars of gold you've seen in media when someone is rich. Gramps notices something is off the man. For starters, what the fuck is doing a rich man in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, in the most rural part of the continent and at the end of a mine shift? Gramps said that the guy started walking closer and began to shape-shift. His breath reeked like cow farts. Legs were twisted. Skin face looked like dried out leather. Clothes turned into feathers. And this motherfucker is getting closer to my Gramp. Gramps begins to run as fast as he can. The guys that were ahead are nowhere to be found. Keeps running to the village. Catches up to the group of workers that initially were leaving after him and were now pretty close to the village. No one noticed in the road anything strange. Later in the night the guys that were ahead told him no one noticed anything weird. Gramp is scared shitless. Had to go work another day. On the way down, this time with his buddies, decides to go look at the spot where the strange guy was. A dead bird was in the spot the man was. Behind there was just a huge pile of shit in the place of the gold. He told me more stories and encounters with the supernatural, but always told me that one was the first time he faced the devil. I obviously botched the storytelling, but that's roughly what happened. And it scares me that someone, on literally the other side of the world, had pretty much the same encounter.
By the way, many of the stories I found were in broken English, so I changed them a bit for the sake of readability, just grammar and spelling stuff mainly. Most are as I found them. I have a story about something that happened to my friend from Mexico. He lived in Talia de Castro, Oaxaca, Mexico, and he was walking home from orchestra practice one day, which is about a 20-minute walk across a field. He has to pass beside a small cliff along the way. As he's passing the cliff, he hears a noise, like someone running up the cliff. This is next to impossible. It's too steep. Suddenly a dog comes up over the side of the cliff and stops in front of my friend. This dog opens its mouth and smiles at him. My friend is terrified, but he can't move or scream. Then, the dog stands up on two legs and starts to sort of dance in front of him while laughing like a human. Then the dog drops back down on four legs and runs back over the side of the cliff. My friend runs back to his house and doesn't tell anyone. The next day, he gets really sick. The doctors are stumped. He tells my friend's family, "This sickness isn't like anything I've ever seen." His family decides to take him to a shaman, and the shaman tells them that my friend is about to die. He had been hexed by an owl who carried a grudge against my friend's father. An owl is a shaman that can transform into animals, usually dogs. My friend has never told this story to me directly. And he always seemed to hate the paranormal. But his cousin knew about the event and he told it to me.
Be me in Alaska, middle of winter. Going camping alone with Mossy. Drive above the Arctic tree line. Find a good place to park and hike. Stick close to the tree line. Searching for old cabin friends told me of. About 4 hours into hike I spot the cabin semi-nestled in tree line. Getting dark, so I decide it's time to set camp. Cabin is fairly small, no bigger than 25 by 25. Inspect cabin, seems pretty good, some wood stacked in front. Set camp in cabin, start fire as the moon rises at around 3 p.m. and the sun is now just beginning to dip down an hour later. It's now hella dark out, so I get ready for sleep. Hear rustling outside, activated.exe. Pull out .44 1851, too young to buy actual pistol. Peek out the door, see something quickly rustle around the cabin out of my view. Dayfuke.png didn't get a good look to tell what it was. Hear something shimmy along the outside wall opposite of the door. Get the fuck away from the door and ready my Mossy with .44 waiting on my lap. Got my fuck everything rounds loaded, steel bolts and washers wired together. Thing makes its way to door and proceeds to bang door. Pants fill with chunks. Wait for thing to make its way in the cabin before taking shot. Hours pass as creature bangs on door slowly. The bangs on the door keep me awake through the long night till the sun rises at 10 p.m. Take a nap till 2 p.m. and decide it's time to leave. Get a creepy feeling as I leave eye shot of cabin as if I'm being watched. Moon rises and announces that the sun will set very soon. Pick up the pace and begin to break into a quick jog. Sun is now beginning to set and the darkness will soon come. Decide to bolt away from tree line by a couple 100 feet. As the sunlight fades away, the moonlight takes place and shines on the tree line. Spot something very large, a shape I've never seen before, spiriting through the woods alongside me. Unsling the Mossy and slow down to a slow jog. See lights in the far distance moving fast parallel with the horizon and disappear into the landscape. Must be a tanker truck, should be close to my truck now. Thing begins to make a break through the trees moving parallel to my direction but going far ahead of me. Thing is moving toward my truck. Fuck, it's gonna be an ambush. Jiv. prepare myself for what shall be coming. Begin to stealth the rest of the way to the truck still away from the tree line. Spot the truck in the moonlight and no sign of thing. Find a good hill couple 100 feet from the truck to keep watch as I wait for any movement. Couple hours pass and I'm beginning to grow very tired. I notice something in my truck. Looks like a person but its shadow is almost pitch black. Try to get closer to inspect, probably just 100 feet from truck now. Shadow in truck is in driver's seat and is dead still. Train the 12GA on whatever it is and keep my eyes wide open as I yell at it. Whoever is in the truck needs to get out. I blink and the shadow in the truck is staring right at me with bright white eyes. My ass mag dumps into my pants. It gets out of my truck and its shape grows to the size of the thing that was in the trees. It begins to quickly move to my position. Fucking nope.jpg. Seems like 8 or 9 feet tall. It's now only 50 feet away from me and I pump 3 of my fuck you loads. Thing's eyes and shadow seems to puff into dust and fade into the darkness. What in the fuck just happened? Move up to my truck and toss everything but the guns into the bed. Get in the driver's seat and find my shot hanging, because steel cable, in the mirror. Don't give a fuck and start up the truck and activate GTFO.exe. Haul ass back to the highway and head home. Never return to the cabin, tell my friends to never to go out there.
Feel free to post your own, but I got one for you guys. Wanted to hear your thoughts on it. Be me. 14 at the time. Pretty fit at the time because I did cross country in high school but nothing special on a scout hike. Going down to bottom of Grand Canyon and spending a few days on the Havasu Res. Group kind of naturally splits into the slow guys and the fast guys. Normally I'd be with the fast guys but my friend is a fat fuck so I linger back with him in the slow group. I'm kind of a rock nerd so I like looking at the geology formations. Other bonus of the slow group is that I can wait behind for a bit to look at things and then catch up pretty fast. Most of the stone is in horizontal layers but I see a stripe that twists from horizontal to vertical like ALN, X, graph. Little bit of cliff climbing in the narrows but no biggie. Tell fat friend I'll catch up, I wanna go look at some weird rocks. He accepts my autism. As I get close to the stripe I can see that it's andesite, which is weird because igneous rocks don't make sense in the GC. Super curious now. Spend about 30 minutes or so pathfinding my way up to a flat spot so I can look at the stripe. As I'm working my way up a little cliff face, like 15 feet, 20 tops, I see a little flower growing in a crevice. Super weird little flower, it has green petals. Haven't seen anything like it since. Autism compels me to poke it. Petals are under tension or something, when I touch it it's like hitting a mousetrap, whole thing kind of explodes and there's a lot of pollen. Immediately hit with just mind-numbing fear. Shit myself. Piss myself. Don't even care, have no idea why I'm so terrified but it's just this immediate reaction. Climb down low enough I can jump down without getting hurt and start running to catch up with others. Sprint back to group. There's some sort of feedback loop where the fear only goes down if I can sprint as fast as I can, slowing down makes it come back. I feel like I can't stop running. I know it's tearing my body up, it hurts so bad to keep going and I get this foamy spit all around my mouth but it is so terrifying to slow down that I keep going. Slow group sees me coming up to them like a bat out of hell, they're trying to ask me what's up but I blitz past them way too fast. Make it to the fast group, they're trying to ask me why I'm going like this but I can't slow down, it's too scary. Scoutmaster thank God is bigger and stronger than me, grabs me as I run. Apparently I fought like an animal, kept trying to bite him while screaming that I have to get away before it arrives. He's a former wrestler so he just got me into a headlock until I passed out and then they tied me up. They sent a fast guy back to the slow group to tell them what's up but they didn't know what to do. It's too hard to transport me when I'm fighting, and there's no signal that deep in the canyon, if you're fucked you're just super fucked. The only option is to send someone into the Havasupai tribe down there and have them medvac you out. Their decision is to send someone to the tribe to get a horse that can carry me, then use that to get me close enough for the medvac. Scoutmaster has them watch me while he goes down to the tribe. It takes probably an hour or so, but the fear fades and I have no idea what the hell happened. They're not even mad at me, they're just baffled at what scared me out of my mind like that, and all I can talk about is the rock and the flower. When they see that I'm not gonna run off again, they untie me and let me wash off in the river / get a change of clothes. I've definitely got Asperger's, but I've never had a tarred out moment with them. They're mostly used to me just being kind of clinical and robotic, so it's a really weird vibe for them. To be honest, it's weird for me too. I've never lost control like that before or since. Eventually the Scoutmaster got back with a horse, but it was decided I didn't need a medevac out. Used the horse to get down the canyon because I was destroyed from that panic run. I must have ran 6 miles in 30 minutes. I could barely stand. Spend the rest of the trip down there just taking it easy, trying to get recovered enough to walk back out. Really didn't want to use horse / medevac again. I'll be honest guys, if I hadn't stuck to the trail, and if the Scoutmaster hadn't been there, I think I literally would have run myself to death. It took a super long time for the fear to wear off when I was basically held down, and even then with the amount of running that I'd done I was basically crippled for the next 2 days. I could barely get out of the canyon by myself. I asked the tribe about the flower and they said they'd never heard of anything like it. Whenever I hear stories about someone being found 30 miles off course from their hike at the top of a mountain or something, I think about that weird little flower and wonder about how many people survive that little ball of doom. Also, sorry for talking about rocks so much. I just like them. I'll contribute a story of something that happened to me a few years ago. This is 100% true and I have never hallucinated or seen anything like this before in my life. Be around 8 p.m. Late fall, in eastern Canada, very dark outside. Busy day working and get home, remember that I was expecting mail. Plan on running out to mailbox real quick. Leave dogs inside, don't want them to run off chasing some random animal like they always do. Grab flashlight and hunting knife, very common to run into wild animals out here including bears, better safe than sorry. Go outside and start walking down long driveway. Out down center of my lawn towards mailboxes in front of neighbor's house, drawn picture included. To this point I have had flashlight in my hand but was pointing it at my feet to watch out for the storm drain located at the property line. Hop over storm drain and proceed to mailbox. At this very moment I sensed something in my peripheral vision. Quickly snapped my flashlight to my left, the sudden burst of luminance swiftly revealed a short and disfigured abomination. Was very short, maybe 4 feet tall, and had a large head with no visible orifices except for 2 largely separate jet black eyes. Its lower body was severely disfigured and looked like it had just crawled out of hell. This thing looked hellish and was making a deep gut gurgling noise while giving off the illusion that it was inching closer to me. In split seconds, I had scanned this fucking thing from head to toe and then made deep eye contact with it. I then lost all control of myself and released a loud ass shriek and bowled in the opposite direction as fast as my legs could possibly allow. This was the first time I have ever encountered anything so paranormal, and this experience definitely changed my outlook on many things. I am no longer skeptical when I read other stories such as these found on, and I now realize that there is many things out there in the world that humanity is clueless about. Whatever the fuck it was I saw, it surely had the final laugh as I ran like a dog with its tail between its legs. I can also say this is the only time I have lost complete control of myself and ran from something without thinking. This shit was fucking unreal.
When I was 16, I went on a camping trip to the Colorado River near Blythe. We didn't use the government campsite. We decided to camp out back in a Three Fingers Lake area, which is just a series of backwaters and canals. So we arrived there mid-afternoon. It was mid-September and the sun was blazing. We found a spot that was a bit secluded. The tents got set up. My brother and I proceeded to go out in search of wood from the nearby willow trees. While collecting wood, I came across a series of hoof prints in the mud, as well as marks of something either sleeping there or at least bedding down in the spot from time to time. I made the assumption that it was a deer or something similar. I had seen the things along the river on other trips. We got a small fire going while we had light, set out a few fishing poles to try our luck while my uncle started up dinner. It was while dinner was cooking that I thought I heard something go into the far side of the canal farther downstream, and come back out on our side. This was something big. I turned to my brother, he didn't think anything of it. My dad thought it was a beaver. Dinner was cooked, we ate, and then set out to get some night fishing in. All four of us, dad, brother, and uncle, were focused intently upon our rods. I kept having a strange feeling that we were being watched by someone. My uncle kept telling me I'm just creeping myself out. At around midnight, we all decided to retire. We threw a few more logs onto the fire to keep some coals going, and then climbed into our tents. I decided to sleep in my own tent, since I had one. My dad had set up his big-ass 6-man tent, so the three of them shared. Thad set my tent up on a nice flat and sandy section of dirt, no rocks under me. I had a foam padding and 2 sleeping beds under me, so I was comfy. As I started to drift off to sleep, I heard something crossing the canal again. Everyone else was passed out hard, I could hear them snoring loudly. Already wary, I flipped onto my stomach, and looked out into the dark through the little mash opening in the tent. All I could see was some dark shape emerge from the slope of the bank. It wandered on the edge of the light. I could hear it sniffing around. The sound of hooves on the ground made me think deer. But then its shape came just within sight to make out a form against the dark sky. It was on 2 laga. I scrunched down into my tent and stopped moving. My mind raced, trying to decide on what I saw and what I was hearing. I convinced myself it was just deer sniffing around and that I was confused. The sounds of the thing faded away after what seemed like hours. I lay there, straining to hear any more noise. All I could hear was the sound of insects and the occasional bullfrog. I finally was able to get some sleep. I was awoken after dawn. Breakfast was already made, coffee and soda waiting, whatever I wanted. I stumbled out, ate my breakfast, started asking everyone if they heard anything last night. None of them had. After changing, and while the heat was still at bay, I walked over to where I had seen the creature. Numerous hoof marks littered the dirt. I followed them over to where we had found all the wood. There was clear signs something had returned to the spot. Soil had been chummed up. I walked back to the campsite, trying to think nothing of it. We spent the day swimming in the canal. Something in the back of my mind kept telling me whatever I saw last night was still around, watching us. That evening, it was my turn to cook. I set up some burgers to cook over the fire while everyone else was going about their business. As I was about to pull the burgers of the fire, when my uncle came running from the willow patch. He started saying there's some weird shit going on back in there. I put the burgers aside, and we all followed him. Farther back in the willow trees, there was what looked like some sort of altar. It was constructed of river stones, and on it sat a half-eaten fish and all sorts of smashed bones. Little reed-tied shapes sat around it, like voodoo dolls made from twigs. We all made our way out, talking about how creeped out we were. My dad and uncle agreed that it was probably some pagan altar or something, because it was hidden. They both agreed that to be the last night we stayed. That night we kept the fire big until we went to bed. I kept saying the way to the willow patch. As I lay there, I heard the thing cross the canal again. I could hear the hooves once more. It circled to the far side of the camp. Once it got to the willow trees, I lost track of it. I strained to hear anything for a long time. I was certain the others were doing the same. Then we heard the most horrible sound erupt from the grave. It was a scream, like someone being murdered, but it had a braying quality to it. I was tempted. I clutched my camp shovel, knowing that something was out there. I heard movement from the other tent. From the other tent, I heard my dad and my uncle emerge. I heard my dad tell my brother to stay in the tent. They both went to the car. I heard my dad talking about getting their guns just in case. My father and his brother always brought pistols with them when we went camping. You never know what kind of animal or crazy person might show up. They both walked off into the dark towards the willow trees. Things were deadly silent. No insects. Nothing but a dull breeze. Then I heard 2 gunshots, followed by another horrible gargled scream. I heard the 2 come running full speed back to the camp. They started screaming at us to get into the car. My brother and I came out of the tents. My dad screamed at us. "Get in the fucking car now. Get in the fucking cart." They bother had their pistols in hand, and headed straight for the car. We all got in. He started it and began hauling ass down the dirt road. He started saying they saw something back in there. My uncle was white. He told us we'll be back for our stuff later. My dad didn't stop until we reached Blythe. He got on his cell phone, and called the police. The police thought my father had shot a homeless man camped out at the river. We headed back in. By the time we returned to the campsite, it was dawn. The tents were torn down, everything was tossed about. Fishing rods busted. Our camp table was in several pieces scattered about. The police searched the area, found the altar and told us we most likely shot at some teens who were out doing their devil worshipping. There was no blood, but hoof prints everywhere again. The police told us to clean everything up and that we should probably leave. We cleaned the site up, gathering the now mostly ruined gear. As I rolled up my tent, I felt something hit my back. I looked down to see one of the wooden figures from the altar in the willows. I looked around in time to see something recede into the reeds, followed by the splashing in the canal. I finished packing everything up, and we left. We haven't gone back since. My dad, brother, and uncle still talk about it, and we all refuse to return to camp near Blythe since.
I just got back from a job I had in Alaska about 2 months ago. I figure it makes a good story, even though it scared the shit out of me at the time. Be me. Working as a radio technician. Get a contract to work at a undermanned radio station in Alaska. The flight is paid for and there is supplies on site. Moving across the county semi-regularly to fill jobs. There was a room for lodging, otherwise I'd have to pay for a hotel in the nearby town which was a few miles away. I already didn't like the sound of a radio station in the Alaskan wilderness miles from any civilization with less than enough workers. Despite this, I accepted the contract because it paid more than any job I'd taken before and not having to pay for a hotel and for food was a plus. I had been instructed to take a gun with me on the trip, preferably a rifle that shot a large caliber. I ended up taking my Marlin 336W in 30-30 Winchester and taking an old shitty .22 I had with me for plinking. For your sake as a reader and to shorten this story by about 3,000 words, I won't go into boarding the plane, getting the guns registered for travel, or establishing residency in Alaska. We land in Fairbanks. The radio station itself was in the middle of nowhere. They greatly underplayed how isolated this place was. It's southeast of Fairbanks, tucked in between the lower part of Donnelly Dome and the Macomb Plateau. The landscape is very hilly, mountainous, and rough. Most of all though, it's cold as hell. Drive just over 2 hours and 107 miles from Fairbanks to Fort Greely. Charter a AS-350 Airbus helicopter to take me and my luggage to the closest inhabited area to the radio station. Hike with a local guide about 10 miles across tough and snowy terrain to the radio station. Guide stays there for the evening because a storm is setting in. While I got situated there, the guide, other staff, and I got acquainted. There was Kevin, the groundskeeper/janitor, who had grown up nearby in Delta Junction. He was 17 and was going off to college soon. Apparently this was one reason the place was undermanned. The pay was over minimum wage and beside from the technicians all the jobs were entry level. Kids would work there during the summer and leave when they went to college. There was the guide, whose name I didn't catch but a few of the others seemed to be familiar with. He was 30-ish and was one of 8 or so local mountaineering/hiking guides. There was also Nathan, a 20-year-old guy saving up to move to Anchorage with his girlfriend. He was the other radio technician. There was supposed to be another employee, but they stopped showing up about a month prior to my arrival. Put my stuff in the lodging room. Go out to talk with the others and get a bite to eat. Enter the main room. Notice that the guide is gone. Hey, where did the guide go? Nathan looked over to me. Oh, he decided to leave since it was getting late. You just let him go? During a storm? He insisted. Said something about having to get home as soon as he could. I'm sure he's fine, he's a guide. He knows these mountains better than the bears do. I wasn't totally okay with this, but I decided Nathan was right and to not make an argument out of it. It bugged me from the beginning that a guide as knowledgeable as he was to just up and leave in a hurry during a storm. The bad news came about a week later. I had been doing my job as I normally would anywhere else, just with heavier clothing and occasional trips outside to restart the heater located in a mini shed near the station. The bad news, as you might guess, was about the guide. He had been found half a mile from the start of the trail leading up to the station. He had been partially eaten, but it was unclear by what or how exactly he died. This spooked us enough that Kevin asked me and Nathan to teach him how to load, fire and maintain a gun just in case. We spent a few evenings going over basics. I let him carry around my shitty .22 as well. We all started carrying guns with us when we had to go outside and just around the station in general. Nathan had brought his 20-gauge M2 Benelli. It didn't completely ease the tension, but it made us feel safer. We got faxed a document saying that an officer would come up to talk with us about the guide's death. A week passed. Then another. Then another. Repeating this process, it had eventually been 4 weeks and some days since the officer was supposed to be here. We weren't supposed to use the radio equipment for anything besides broadcasting the intended content, but we figured this was important enough to bend the rules. We got in contact with a local police station. Apparently they couldn't locate a guide to assist an officer up to the station. They had sent one officer, but he hadn't reported back. They said that a blizzard was moving in and would be here within days. We told them what we knew about the guide before his death over the radio. They instructed us to stay put and wait out the storm. They told us to keep an open channel with them for as long as possible. 2 days pass and around 2:30 in the morning we lose contact with the police station. I work until 10 a.m. trying to get in contact with them. No luck. Kevin uses his ancient Nokia brick to call a local town's municipal center. His reception is shit. Every other call results in the "call cannot be completed as dialed" message. Get in contact with local government workers. Ask them to get into contact with the police station and let them know we're fine. Also ask them to get into contact with the contracting company. Nathan was ready to jump ship, and to be honest I was too. For about 3 days we were stuck like that. Not able to broadcast. Little contact with the outside world. I remember the day that we got the message like it was mere hours ago to this day. I had been trying to get some sleep during the storm, since we couldn't do our normal duties anyway. I was shaken awake by Nathan, who told me to get up and come with him. When I finally came to my senses I saw why he was so worried. The power is off. Not just the heat, the power. I get up and come into the main room where Kevin is sitting, wrapped in 2 heavy blankets and a puffy jacket. He has the .22 on the table and visibly loaded. What's going on? I asked. Power went out a few minutes ago. We heard something outside too. I loaded your rifle for you. My Marlin was sitting on the table next to a box of 30-30. What did you hear? Scraping. It sounded like something was trying to claw itself inside. Probably just an animal. I'll go out and get the heater running. I went to the door with my rifle in hand. Open door. Snow falls into the doorway and the door is slammed back closed by the wind fuck. We decided to wait out the storm the best we could, but we had to get warmer. Nathan and Kevin tried to start a fire while I gathered blankets, jackets, and any cloth or tarp I could. I found about 5 blankets in total as well as a few towels and a tarp. We huddled around the small fire and about 4 hours later the power returned. We assumed that this meant the storm died down a little, so once again I made my way to the door with my rifle. I opened it and a bit of snow fell in, but the door wasn't blown shut immediately. I walked out, trudging through multiple feet of snow. By the time I got to the shed I was out of breath. I swung open the door to find the heater already running. Fuck. All that for nothing. I'm halfway back to the station when I feel it. That horrible sensation of being watched. I ran towards the station. As I neared the station I picked up on a horrible smell. A musky smell, like a dog's hot breath. I bumbled in the door. "What the fuck is that smell?" I asked. I slammed the door shut. "I don't smell anything." I opened the door. "It must be out here then, come smell it." "Dude, close the door, it's Kodash." The smell drafted into the station and cut off his sentence. Nathan and Kevin began coughing and gagging. I closed the door, thinking it would help. The air felt thick, like physically heavier than air is supposed to be. I began gagging uncontrollably. After about a minute of hell, it finally subsided as the ventilation system filtered it out. It lingered for days and never really went away entirely. We checked back with the people Kevin had called. No luck getting in contact with the contracting company. They did help us establish a connection with the police station. They said that the officer they sent up was still not back and presumed lost in the storm. We requested help to get out of there. We still had enough food and water for another 2 months. We asked about the possibility of a search and rescue team coming to get us. We only received a one-word response. Unlikely. We had packed our stuff by the door and got ready to sleep for the night. That night I woke up with a harsh chill going through my body. I opened my eyes to see that there was snow everywhere. On the floor, on my bed, on me. All over the room. The door to the room was open, which I distinctly remember closing. I got up and ran out into the main room. The front door was wide open and I noticed that one of our packs was gone. I knew it was Kevin's because his was the closest to the door. My pack, which was next to Kevin's, had a large tear down the middle. It was a rough and uneven tear about the size of a bear's paw. There was some sticky black residue on the bag as well, which smelled like rot and musk combined in a horrible symphony of odors. I slammed the door shut and turned on the lights. I went to wake up Nathan and Kevin. Nathan woke up instantly when I shook him awake, but Kevin's eyes were froze shut. We spent the morning putting hot water on his eyes and eventually got them open. He could see for the most part, but he complained of his eyes being freezing cold to the point of pain despite the rest of his body being warm, even hours after they had been open and warmed up. The next 2 days were pretty uneventful. Eventually a team consisting of a police officer and 2 local mountaineering specialists came to pick us up. We were hesitant to tell them about the weird things that had happened to us, but eventually they inquired about our time there and we told them. They said that they got reports like that from people working at the station fairly often. They told us that they had never really had any reason to go up there and that it was just some kids getting spooked by their own shadow, but that this was the worst it had ever been. Even after we left that place, the whole ordeal wasn't entirely over. We of course had to speak to the police about everything. Mostly about the missing people, but they wanted to know everything else as well. We ended up staying there for another month because of the police investigation and because we had technically breached our contract with the contracting company and the broadcasting company. The contractors dropped all charges and we and the broadcasting company settled out of court. Even after coming home, some weird things go on that are directly related to this whole thing. If I ever tell the story, whether that be online or in person, my dogs always act up if they are with me. Even when I'm not home, my neighbors, without fail, tell me that my dogs made a ton of noise. That could be a coincidence or them trying to spook me, but I guess anything is possible.